Stand by for a transmission from DX Central. This broadcast is not a test. To confirm reception, please tune your radio to any AM or FM frequency and report your observations during this transmission. Again, this is not a test. Stand by for a transmission from DX Central. This broadcast is not a test. To confirm reception, please tune your radio to any AM or FM frequency and report your observations during this transmission. Again, this is not a test.
Radio 1. DX Central Live is brought to you in part by...
Since 1933, the National Radio Club has been serving AMDXers while providing some of the most in-depth information in the hobby. From the annual NRC AM log, a must-have reference for domestic station information, to antenna design reference manuals, and of course, the DX News Member Bulletin, which is filled with station information updates, domestic and international loggings, and a whole lot more. Become a member today. For more information, log on to nationalradioclub.org. That's nationalradioclub.org. While the HF bands can be filled with entertaining and intriguing transmissions, how do you know when and where to look? Let Teague Publishing's Global Radio Guide lead the way. In addition to its exhaustive list of time and frequency for international broadcasters, radio hobby icon Gail Van Horn brings you equipment reviews, an SDR buyer's guide, feature articles, and more. Pick up your copy today. Visit teaguepublishing.com for more information. That's teaguepublishing.com. From the pages of its DX Monitor Member Bulletin, members of the International Radio Club of America share their domestic and international AMDX loggings. In its Mexican log, a wealth of information can be found of stations from south of the border. Technical guides, sunrise, sunset maps, and more make the IRCA a must-join for any AMDXer. For more information, log on to ircaonline.org. That's ircaonline.org.
Through crashes of static in quiet hours, we listen. In languages we can scarcely understand, and of places we have only visited in our dreams, we listen. Incessantly, we perfect our array of aerials, receivers, and resources. We refine our skills and our techniques so that we might listen. We are DX Central, and we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
The Philadelphia Phillies pregame show, brought to you by Safeguard Mutual Insurance and by Woco Department Stores.
From the Gulf South
to your corner of the world,
this is DX Central Live.
Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
It's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana. My friends, good evening and welcome. Happy Friday to you. Hopefully it's been a good week for you. It's been a productive week here. We've had some fun. Actually had a chance to spin the dials or the track wheel on the mouse, as it were. Same thing, right? Had a chance to do some DX this week, and boy howdy, had some fun doing it. So hopefully you guys had a chance to do that as well. No, I saw some good logs coming in for this week's challenge. Scoochie, there we go. So yeah, saw some good logs coming in from the challenge this week, and had a chance to snag a couple myself. A couple new ones. I think 7 new this week total. And I've been scouting out our next frequencies of the week for our next challenge week. We've only got a couple left. So we'll be doing, I think we got 3 left, including the one we're going to announce tonight, and then 2 more weeks after that. So we'll be announcing that next hour, the new frequencies. Of course, we have our results from last week, 610 and 612. We can do that a little bit later on here in the next hour. We have our usual assortment of shout-outs, DXE, Tweet of the Week, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I did want to take a really quick second just to do a little quick homage, as it were. As you guys know, there's some medium wave stations that have gone off the air over the years in Europe, Africa, things like that. And same thing on long wave as well. And I know our main focus here at DX Central has traditionally been AM and FM DX, but we also do have an eye on things like long wave. So it's I want to make sure we have a fitting homage here to Ireland's RTE, which is down on 252 kilohertz long wave, and about a little over half an hour ago wrapped up their final broadcast of live content, and they're now airing information on a loop, starting with their old interval signal. So let's go ahead and listen really quick. This is our friend Paul over in Ireland. Caught this 1.5-minute long clip earlier this evening as RTE1 on 252 kilohertz long wave shut down.
You're listening to RTE Radio 1 on Longwave 252. RTE Radio 1 is no longer available on Longwave. But don't worry, there are still lots of ways to listen to RTE Radio 1 and all of your favourite RTE radio services. In Ireland, you can continue to listen on FM, on Sairview and Sairsat, and on your preferred streaming service. In the UK, you can listen on Freesat, channel 750, Sky, channel 0137, and Virgin Media, channel 917, although this may depend on your Virgin Media box. You can also listen on the RTE Radio Player app and on your preferred audio streaming service. Just visit rte.ie/keep listening to see the range of listening options available. You can also phone the RTE Information Service on +353 1208 3434. That's +353 1208 3434. Thank you for listening.
So there you go. I guess the last transmission there, or the first transmission post broadcast of RTE1 252 kilohertz long wave over in Ireland. So hate to see the big ones go like that, right? We never like seeing that, but hey, we still have a lot we can DX in Asia, UK, US, down under a little bit. We have still some Europeans and some Africans. Romania is really kind of still sticking in there on the medium wave stuff. And of course, over closer to home, besides our US and Canadian stuff, we have Latin America still going strong. So lots of stuff that can still be heard on medium wave for most folks around the world. And that's why we continue to say we're all about radio here at DX Central. And as long as there's a signal to be heard, we'll be trying to hear it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our DX for the night. We're getting close to our top of the hour alert. Of course, this first hour of Live DX is brought to you by National Radio Club, nationalradioclub.org is a website to go to for more information about becoming a member of the NRC, and I hope that you do. Support the clubs that support the hobby. We'll take a tour around the shack this evening. We got 2 main rigs up and running right now, and let's go ahead and hit record on this one. This is our Perseus. We have 2 CAS antennas. We have a northwest-southeast antenna, which is right now pointing northwest at 305 degrees. We have a west-east. We took the north-south, knocked it west-east at 285 degrees, so we're looking out west. So probably not going to be a whole lot there on that one tonight just yet until we get past sunset here, which you can see on the map here. We're still a little ways off. We also have our AirSpy HF Plus Discovery with our CAS antenna pointing northeast at 35 degrees. So this is our northeast-southwest antenna right now, again at 35 degrees. We also have in our arsenal of stuff here, we have an RSPDX plugged in right now into a twin set of W6 LVP loops with an MFJ-1026 Phaser. We're going to start off, though, here on the AirSpy and see if we can hear anything on 1060. Now, I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a spoiler alert as we fire the alert. And we're going to do that now. Top of the hour time frame means it's time to look for IDs and top of the hour content. And we're going to start off here on the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery. And the reason we're doing that is because a long absent, and when I say long, last several weeks at least, absent neighbor here in the New Orleans area on 1060 kilohertz has returned. WLNO New Orleans. Let's see if we can get an ID out of our local Gospel 1060 station before they shut down for the night. Believe it or not, that is them. Of course, we definitely invite you to join us over in the chat. Let us know what you're hearing. We're going to be doing shout-outs a little bit later on, so go ahead and gather up any new logs you've had this week. New logs, new states, new countries, new Canadian provinces. I know we got some folks who've done some of those, so we're going to be firing off those a little bit later on tonight. Sawing some logs, stamping some passports, shooting off fireworks, and calling them moose, eh? And so we'll be getting those ready. And so make sure you get those gathered up. But hold on to them. Don't send them over just yet. We'll get to them here in a little bit after the top of the hour. So we should be coming up here with a top of the hour ID, hopefully, out of WLNO in New Orleans. Seriously, they've been gone all week. They just appeared. There you go. It was in and out pretty quick. Let's go check the Perseus now. See what we caught on that. All right, let's go back to the AirSpy now on 1070. On the Northeast Wire, our main targets here would be WAPI out of Birmingham. They've been pretty consistent. WDIA out of Memphis will be coming up here in a bit. WNVY Cantonment finally got them to pop in here this week. We've also heard WFRF very briefly this week. WKII, a little bit out of KNTH. So this has been a pretty active frequency for us. Even heard Radio Guama this week down in Cuba briefly. And also managed to get Radio 1026 over here on 1060 as well. So so we'll see what we have here on 1070 now. They're in network news right now.
This is still very much the party of Trump. They voted once to make America great again. The question is if their money will follow. During the first presidential run, the NRA gave Trump about $30 million. Will they do it again? Is it open question?
Commercial now. So the only station that we have not heard this week confirmed, I did hear a couple of snippets that I think might have been them, but nothing confirmed, was KYW out of Philly. Normally they make the trip pretty easily, and I have them in the log, but they did not easily make the trip this week. Some of the other ones that usually have been heard here, or in the past, WCSZ, Sanssouci, haven't heard them. WFLI, Lookout Mountain, haven't heard them on 1070. So those were two, and I haven't heard them here yet in Mandeville. But I was actually hoping to be able to pull them in this week, but didn't hear them. I didn't hear your station out of Utah, Stephanie. You're talking about KDYL out of South Salt Lake. I've looked and looked and looked. And I've got my, I may have to put the Northwest Wire on them and see if I can pull them in this week, if they're still sitting there on their daytime power. But I did not hear them.
Earnings numbers from JP Morgan Chase are defying concern. The nation's largest bank posted a 52% profit increase in the first quarter of this year, and revenue up 25% to a record $38 billion. JP Morgan Chase seeing new funds from depositors seeking the safety of too big to fail banks. With higher interest rates, the bank making more money on loan and credit card interest, doubling lending income. Dave Packer, ABC News.
12 U.S. soldiers killed in the Revolutionary War will be reburied in South Carolina later this month. The bodies are in shallow graves after the 1790 regiment 1780 Battle of Camden. Archaeologists say several were teenagers. The remains of the Lion State at Fort Jackson for the procession found in Fort finally buried. This is ABC News.
Once U.S. troops begin, what do you expect from the expected?
Hey, Sean. What scores?
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central. DX Central Live is brought to you in part by...
Since 1933, the National Radio Club has been serving AMDXers while providing some of the most in-depth information in the hobby. From the annual NRC AM log, a must-have reference for domestic station information, to antenna design reference manuals, and of course, the DX News Member Bulletin, which is filled with station information updates, domestic and international loggings, and a whole lot more. Become a member today. For more information, log on to nationalradioclub.org. That's nationalradioclub.org. While the HF bands can be filled with entertaining and intriguing transmissions, how do you know when and where to look? Let Teague Publishing's Global Radio Guide lead the way. In addition to its exhaustive list of time and frequency for international broadcasters, radio hobby icon Gail Van Horn brings you equipment reviews, an SDR buyer's guide, feature articles, and more. Pick up your copy today. Visit teaguepublishing.com for more information. That's teaguepublishing.com. From the pages of its DX Monitor Member Bulletin, members of the International Radio Club of America share their domestic and international AMDX loggings. In its Mexican log, a wealth of information can be found of stations from south of the border. Technical guides, sunrise, sunset maps, and more make the IRCA a must-join for any AMDXer. For more information, log on to ircaonline.org. That's ircaonline.org.
Through crashes of static in quiet hours, we listen. In languages we can scarcely understand, and of places we have only visited in our dreams, we listen. Incessantly, we perfect our array of aerials, receivers, and resources. We refine our skills and our techniques so that we might listen. We are DX Central, and we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
Brought to us tonight by the tobacco companies located in the Oak Brook Shopping Center and in Old Chicago in Bolingbrook, a presentation of WGN Sports. Vince Lloyd and Lou Boudreau. Lou has the leadoff man coming up in just a moment, and don't forget we'll be on the air with you tomorrow, 12:55 on WGN Radio Chicago. How you doing, everybody? Lou Boudreau with the leadoff man from Busch Stadium in St. Louis.
From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
All right, so can you hear me now? If there's one consistent thing that we've had here at DX Central, that is microphone issues. It seems like every week it's something with the microphone. And I promise, I don't touch anything. And like this one, it was working. You guys could hear me. And then it went away. And then you couldn't hear me. And I literally touched nothing in the process. And normally when it happens, it's like, it happens at the beginning of the show, right? Like going into it before I start the show, I check the mic, make sure it's working. If it's not, I unplug, replug, everything's fine. It doesn't just stop working in the middle of the stream, willy-nilly. That never happens. Until tonight. Anywho, from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana, we bring you DX Central Live each Friday night until May 5th. And then we'll be taking a bit of a hiatus as we get ready for Season 4, which will start up in the fall. Speaking of the fall, I did want to talk about something tonight. We're going to talk about goal setting and logbook analysis. Some of you might have seen some of my posts that I was putting up on Twitter and in the Slack channel or on the NRC group or some of the other Facebook groups. So we're going to talk about some of that tonight. But first, before we do that, let's go ahead and announce our winners from last week's Medium Wave Frequency Challenge. Now think back, we're looking back to 610, 612, and all of us got tired of hearing KCSP or Radio Rebellion or whatever, a KILT or whatever station it was that was kind of the bane of your existence for a week, right? Well, let's look back to that. All right, congrats to Barry and all of our category leaders for a great week. Mike, Mesa Mike, getting in on the action this week with the top mileage and third highest totals. It wasn't our best week, but we did okay. We did all right considering what was there. Or I guess what wasn't there, right? There wasn't a whole lot on 610. I think we logged, if I remember correctly, we logged 70 some odd percent of the stations in the United States that could have been heard on that frequency. We heard them, 70% of the states and stations. So we did pretty good as a group. So not too shabby. And that's the kind of stuff I want to use that as a nice transition, by the way. That's what we call in the biz a transitional statement. I don't know if they do or not. That's what I'm calling it. To talk about this, so I mentioned it a few moments ago, and I talked about it on social media, in the Slack channel, the Medium Wave DX Slack channel, for those of you who are in there. Two things: goal setting and logbook analysis. And some of you know I did a whole series of videos on logbook analysis and have since completely revamped how I do my logbook. The fundamentals of what I talked about in those videos are very much still used today, but the difference is I've automated most of that now instead of having to kind of do it on the fly every single time, because that was kind of a pain. But typically, I usually set my marker at September 1st. That's the start of the new DX season for myself. It's September 1. 8 through 8/31. That's the DX season. So this year's 2023-24 is we'll be starting on September 1st. So normally sometime around July or August, I start thinking about goals for the upcoming year. But this year, I wanted to start it a little bit earlier and do some more kind of analysis review of my logbook, and start thinking a bit more about the different angles and ways that I could look at my logbook. And that's why I wanted to bring this up that way, in case we can kind of share, because in sharing this information, Carl DeWitt from our audience here brought up a really awesome thing, that we're going to talk about here in a second, of another way to look at your logbook that actually is going to probably result in another goal for myself. So what I've typically looked at with goals is as a way to keep me motivated during the course of the season. And I break them down into 3 different categories. You have your skill goals, which is trying to refine your skills, build skills, either adding new skills that you don't already have or improving upon the ones that you do. So maybe it is utilizing a phaser to reduce noise or pest stations and hear things underneath. Maybe you want to get better at doing that. Maybe you want to, you're already doing it, but you want to get better. Maybe you're wanting to refine your ability to target specific parts of the country, or Latin America, or transoceanic things like transatlantic, transpacifics. Maybe you want to build or enhance those skill sets. Those are some things that I've done in the past, but skills are just kind of about the things that we do to get all the other stuff. And then there's equipment goals. So you want to kind of take stock of what do you have and what do you think you might need for the year. Do you want to add any antennas, any radios, any SDRs, any portable gear, anything to take your operations out and about? Do you need to get any new connectors, new feed lines, all of it, right? Do a full assessment on your gear that you use to DX. Assess the condition of them. Are there any pieces that need to be replaced? I just did an assessment on mine, and I need to replace every single one of the BNC to SO239 adapters that I use on my vactrol and on my Wellbrook amplifiers on my CAS antenna. So that's 6 of those I had to buy from, I just bought them from DX Engineering. They're a little bit nicer than the ones that I bought from Amazon. I hope they last a little bit longer, but these that I've been using have been kind of inconsistent. So that's one thing. I did a complete assessment of my equipment, and that's one of the things that I have found. And then there's other things like finally getting this guy in the air. I keep talking about it. I need to buy a ground rod, a ground clamp-on plate to be able to put my lightning arrestor on so I can plug my coax into that, get this up in the air, and start doing some DX with the omnidirectional mini whip. So that's one of the things that I've kind of put a number one goal, put the mini whip up in the air, finishing the FSL, things like that. So do you have any antenna projects or any gear related things that you need to do for the upcoming DX season? And this is part of why I wanted to do this assessment now, is because maybe some of that stuff I want to do before I even get into the season. I want to start some of that before I get to the season. And then there are the performance goals. So these are the ones that kind of drive me in my DX pursuits, the things that I kind of shoot for. So this year I had a goal. I wanted to get to 700 stations heard from Mandeville during this DX season. And I have like 3 or 4 stations left to do, and I'll get that. And I've got 4 months left. So I think we'll probably hit that number. And so then that colors what I'm going to do for my goal for the next year. So you can see as an example here, I have added a goal for myself. Let me zoom in a bit, because I'm sure on the screen it's probably not super easy to see. Let's go to 150% here. Log 150 new stations. So I know that that's probably going to put me somewhere at or near 900 if I was to add 150 new stations in the next season. Depending on what I end up with here between now and September 1st, right? Which probably won't be a ton of DX, but I am trying to at least get 10 to 20 stations every month. And I just hit 10 for April, so I'm on track. So that's one. And then there's, add a new Canadian province, add a new U.S. state, add a new country. Those are kind of always there. I kind of always try to have that there. And the cool thing is, let's say I do this, and I come over here and I say, hey, I just added one, right? Then I can come over here, I can add a new row, and I can do it again. I can say, okay, I added one. Let's see if I can add another one. This actually happened to me when I was in Charleston. I had a goal to add one new state from the Northeast, New England states, and I got Rhode Island, and I was like, okay, let's add another one. And then I got Vermont, and I was like, all right, let's try for New Hampshire and Maine. So you can adjust these as you go along, but you start off with a core group of goals, and then you can either adjust them if you need to or add to them if you achieve one early or whatever. And then this is another one, reach 5 stations logged on each frequency. I can't tell you how helpful that particular kind of goal is, of having a goal of setting a certain number of logs on every frequency. It started out for me, I wanted to have at least one on every frequency. That was my first goal that I had when I moved here. Number one, make sure you have a log station on every frequency. I don't count 530 and I don't count 1610, so that leaves me with about 116 frequencies with a station that I would have a log on it, so that guarantees me I'm at 116 stations logged. Then I want to get to 2 or 3 stations on every single frequency. Then it was 4, which I'm working on now. But for the new season, I want to get 5 on every single frequency. And I think I have 30 frequencies left that I need to do to get to that point. So I've gone into Google Sheets and I built myself this little spreadsheet, just kind of built it out of thin air. And I have this little drop down that I put in here, so I just kind of right clicked and made it a drop down. And then I made my selections of what I wanted my drop down to say, right? So it's super easy, and that's, so I can do my status tracking of either I haven't started yet, it's in progress, it's done, or at the end of the season I never got it done, maybe. I did conditional formatting here on these numbers ones, so that based on a certain range, like these add ones, add a province, add a state, add a country, those are either you have or you haven't. So when I get to 1, changes the color to green. That lets me know I've gotten it, or maybe I haven't gotten it and I'm at 0. And then there's other ones like here, since I have 30 frequencies on this one to reach 5 per frequency, I have 30 frequencies to do that on. Let's say I get 20 frequencies where I've done it. Maybe it's now in the yellow. Maybe I get to 28. Now I'm in the green, right? You kind of set your range of what you want it to be for your conditional formatting. Same thing up here on the log 150. But I also made, for my website, these guys, these little gauges here, using the same kind of basic logic. And all this is built into Google Sheets. All you have to do is just have the data, and then once you have the data, then you can add a chart, and there's a bunch of different charts in here. There's bubble charts and scatter charts, and there's these gauges. So there's a lot of different ones. So if you're not using Google Sheets yet, definitely recommend that you do, because there's so much in here that you could actually use and build out without any real hard work or anything. It's just a matter of telling it where to look for the data, and then here you go. So that's my my goal sheet that I have for the upcoming year. I want to make sure that I can kind of set those goals. I make some notes for myself, like for the Canadian province when I said which ones I'm missing. Same thing for the states. And then I made my note here about the number of frequencies that have 5 or more on them already, what's left. So in addition to that, from that conversation that started in the Slack channel, I then said, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do for my goals. And Carl had mentioned he wanted to set a goal for himself of either getting all of or more of the big 50 kilowatt stations. So that ding, little light in my head. And I said, hey, I wonder how many 50 kilowatt stations there are at night in the United States. And how many of those have I logged? How many states does that give me if I get them all? And how many states do I already have? So I started looking at that. You guys probably saw it in the online and the social media posts that I put up on the Facebook groups and things like that. But I figured I'd go ahead and also kind of talk through it. So what I basically did is I took Mason Mike's website. He has the option to download a delimited file, which I know Mike has actually tweaked based on some suggestions that myself and some other DXers have had. We made some suggestions on a couple tweaks to be able to get some more information. I'll talk about that here in a second and show that to you, because it's pretty freaking cool. It's really freaking cool, actually. But I took the data from his website and I said, okay, show me all the ones that have a night power 50K. and I filtered for just those. So that gives you 94 stations. There are 94 stations in the United States that have 50,000 watts of power at night. Now, there are some that have like 49 or 46 or 25. So there's others that are kind of pretty high. But I started the threshold. Let's just start at the 50K, and we'll go from there. Because most of those, a lot of those, are either non-directional or they still cover a very large area. So here's all the ones. And then I said, okay, I used some VLOOKUP functions in here, and I said, look and see if I've heard any of these stations. So anytime you found one that I've logged, let me know over here. For the ones that are not, that are NA, leave it as NA. And then once I had that, then I could come over here and say, okay, was it a heard station? And I could boil it down to a true or not statement, essentially. And from that, then I could do whatever I need to do from pivot tables and everything else. And the cool thing is by doing it the way I did it, it automates it. So if I go into my logbook and I add in KMJ out of Fresno, that will then automatically change this to KMJ right here and get rid of the NA. And then this NA right here changes automatically to true. I don't have to do anything. And so I'm going to be adding some stats here to my website, my logbook website, which you guys have seen here, the Mandeville logbook, with all my analysis on it. I'm going to be adding some of this analysis on there around the percentage of ones that I've heard, and also the map here. So this is the map that shows all the states that you can put into your logbook if you hear at least one of the 50K stations in that state. Now, some of them only have one. So you might have, something like, let's say, Georgia that has one. I think Wyoming has one, KTWO. So some of these might only have one. But if you can log at least one station, California has 14, by the way. I think New York also does, if I remember right. You can go in and you can at least log one of those. If you did that in every state that has a 50K, you have 39 states, and you also have DC and Puerto Rico. I've gotten, I think it was 26 was it what I had? Off the top of my head, I can't remember. But so this is some of the logbook analysis that I'm doing right now, and this is going to help me shape my goal setting as well, because I might add a goal in for that. Another thing that I was able to do from Mesa Mike's website, and I want to show this to you guys because Mike actually just tweaked this. And Mike, I know you're in the chat, dude. I love this. This is so awesome. So one of the things that I was wanting to do in my logbook was add a field here for miles, because I hadn't been tracking that yet. I hadn't been tracking the mileage of the stations that I'd heard. I'd been doing it for graveyarders, but not non-graveyarders. But I wanted to start doing that because I wanted to see what are my furthest, what's my, what kind of grouping do I have, and also the bearing, right? So what direction am I hearing most of my stuff from? Is it northeast? Is it west? Is it southwest? Things like that. And you can actually do, if you go in here into Mesa Mike's website, you can actually plug in, and I did get this working, Mike, by the way. You can actually plug in your Latin long, and it'll give you the distance and bearing, just like Tim Trump's U.S. Canadian search page does. You can do the same thing, right? You can plug in your lat long and it gives you that distance and bearing. Here's the rub, and here's where Mike just made the tweak. I can now go over here and say, okay, show me a delimited file for all frequencies, all states that has my distance and bearing information in there. You couldn't do this before, but you can now. I apply these options. It gives me a delimited file, so I can now plug that into my logbook, and I've been able to add in a new field over here in my logbook for mileage. Now, obviously, this is only U.S. stations, so I still have to go back in and fill in anything that's outside of the U.S., which is about 130 stations right now that I have logged outside of the U.S., but from nearly 700 stations logged, the vast majority I could fill in automatically by using a VLOOKUP. So I basically took Mesa Mike's delimited file information here, added a sheet into my logbook, and said, okay, when you find this station, tell me how many things it is there on the miles, and it spits it out for me. I'm going to do the same thing with bearing as well. And then I can make a chart. I can make a radar chart for the bearing. I can do a mileage chart. Or some kind of scatter chart or something like that to kind of see visually, how am I doing? Is it mostly this smaller, closer range stuff, or am I getting some of the good longer range stuff as well? So I'm still finishing that out. I'm plugging in the international stuff, and I'm grabbing that because I've been logging all my international stuff on medium wave lists, so they already have all those mileages available to me. I just have to plug it in. and find it on my medium wave list log. But for those of you who don't, there are tools that you can use. We use this one here, the how far is it in between as the crow flies tool here. You can actually find this on the Google form that we have for the medium wave frequency challenge, so that's there for you if you need to find those mileages. But yeah, I think this is a really cool thing that you can do to plug in your lat long on Mesa Mike's site, and then you can then put out a delimited file that you can import into Google Sheets or Excel or whatever spreadsheet program you're using, and you'll be able to see every single station, whether you've logged it or not, what's the distance, what's the bearing. So if it's one of those you haven't logged yet and you want to know what bearing do I need to be able to get to be able to target that station on my loop antenna, or if I'm putting up a new cast, what direction I need to point it at, this will tell you. This will get that information for you. So thank you, Mike, for adding that new option. You don't have to do the delimited. You can also do it this way as a table, and you can just see it the traditional way that you always have done. But if you want to pull this into your logbook, you're going to have to add in this delimited option here. Hit apply these options, and there you go. Just copy paste that in, and then you'll see in my videos, my logbook analysis videos, I teach you how to actually do the text to columns here, because this is a delimited area. Everything's kind of all in one line, all together in one cell, and then you can use these little spacers here to separate out, and or whenever it finds a spacer, it puts it into the next thing into a new column. It's all my videos. Go check it out on the YouTube channel. On the logbook analysis videos, you'll see how to do all that. It's super, super easy. So that's it. So yeah, doing this with logbook analysis. So if there's anything else that you're wanting to do, or any other way that you're carving up your log, you're thinking, it'd be cool if I could see how many this I have heard, or this that I've logged, or I wonder if I can see, this direction, or this mileage, or any kind of grouping of data, let us know in the chat. What is it that you're wanting to see or would like to see? How you're carving it up. Maybe it's something that we can figure out together. And then I'll add it to my page over here, because I'm going to be adding my goals to this page for the new year. I'll be adding this 50K analysis. I'm also going to do a similar analysis on the 10, everything between 10 and 50K night. I'm also going to do a similar analysis on the 50K stations that are there during the daytime that might power down at night, so you can try to grab them for sunset or sunrise when they power back up. So we're going to be doing all kinds of analysis on this stuff. So I've already got quite a bit here that you guys have seen before, as you'll see all the different pieces that I've got on the logbook analysis page, but I'm going to be adding a whole lot more as we slice and dice this data. So more to come on that, especially if I have a chance to play with it this summer. So again, let us know what your logbook analysis looks like. I guess I'm not even showing the screen here right now, am I? So anyway, all right. Someone said post the link to Mesa Mike's website. I'm not sure, Bill, if you've got that handy. I can grab it during the next break and put it in. If not, no problem. All right. Let's do some more DX on 1060 and 1070. We should be getting we're now into the dark period here. I'm seeing orange out there in the sky, so that means the sun has set. So we should have better sunset now conditions for us. So let's take a gander. Been watching Outlander. Let's take a gander at 1070. Actually, let's look at 1060 first, and then we'll come back to 1070. Probably Mexico. I just saw Barry ask the question for David, if he has room for a CAS antenna. Before you answer that question, I used a 12-foot high, so I took a 12-foot tall painter's pole. That was my middle mast. And I did a 48-foot wide. Okay? So 12-foot high by 48-foot wide. That was my first ever CAS antenna that I put up when I was in Charleston. With that CAS antenna, I heard Ecuador, I heard Peru. I actually heard some fantastic DX. I heard into Europe, transatlantic when I was in Charleston. I heard some fantastic DX. Here in Mandeville, I've got two that are 22-foot high by 70-foot long. I've got a little bit more room here than I did in Charleston. And I also have another one in the front yard. It's a little bit shorter. It's 20-foot by 58, 60 feet. So as long as you've got Now, our folks in apartments and condos and things like that, or severe HOA restrictions, might have a little bit tougher. But as long as you've got 48 feet, you can do a CAS. If you don't have 48 feet, you can still do a pretty damn good antenna. You can do a flag antenna. I had one that was 16 foot high by, 36 feet long, 40 foot, so somewhere in that range. And I just used 2 kite poles on either end. And then, so I had that going across the top, coming down the sides of the kite poles, and then down the bottom. Laying on the ground was the wire at the bottom. Put an amplifier on one side, vactrol on the other, or terminating resistor of some sort in the other. And whichever direction that terminating resistor is in, this applies for the CAS or the flag, that's the null side. The other side is your direction that you're looking at. So you don't have to have a ton of space. You just have to have some, I would say minimum about 30 feet. You're going to need about 30 feet to do some sort of terminated loop antenna, either a delta or a flag or a pennant or one of those. You need at least about 30 feet. If you can get 30 feet, you can have a terminated flag or terminated delta at your house, in your back or front yard or whatever you're going to do, and you can start seeing the difference that those terminated loops make, because you're nulling out one direction, you're amplifying towards another. It makes a huge difference. It's enabled me to get DX that I never thought I could. So that's all it takes. Let's go ahead and take a look now at 1060. David asks where you can find information on the CAS. There are some great websites. Hold on. There are some websites you can go to. Let me find you here. I'm going to bring this up on screen here. So everyone should have this bookmarked. This is BAM log, Bruce's AM log. He's got a lot of information here, my friends. I have learned so much about the technical side of our hobby, especially the antenna side, from resources available on his site. But go to the antenna area, and you'll see here, where'd it go? I know I'm looking at it. Broadband, Superloop. The Superloop is another good one, by the way. I'll pull that one up. Let's look at the flag. I know he's got a CAS one here. This is where I learned about it. Maybe it's on this Delta variant one. So, slightly different for the CAS. I usually go with about 20 to 22 feet. I know he's got a 30-footer here. I usually don't go that high. But this is some information on his site about the Delta variant. So you have a regular Delta, you have a double Delta or double DCAS, double CAS. This is the shared apex, the phased one, like the K89AY or K89Y. I can remember which one it is. So there's that one. This is the Superloop. This is the one that I built in the front yard, and I think it was the one that I had. It was 16 by 30. It wasn't the flag. It was a Superloop. It's because it's corner fed. I think the flag I had was center fed up on the center of the one of the vertical lines, but this one you could actually have the ground wire literally on the ground and your amplifier right above it, so you can have that there, and it shows you all kinds of data here about what to expect for antenna patterns and nulling depth depending on your length and height and the frequency that you're on, things like that. Here's the flag. You can see again it is center is where you have your lead in. Your feed line comes in halfway up there, so a little bit different than the Superloop, where the Superloop's on the ground, where you put your feed line in. The feed line here needs to be a little bit further up, about midway up the vertical support. We also have, and I'm going to say it, here at DX Central. Hey, look at that. There's DXC live right now. Oh, my goodness. If you search, go over here and just search in our website or our YouTube. search CAS, and you'll see a couple of different videos. You're going to see this initial one right here. This is the first one that I did, this building a CAS antenna for medium wave DX. This is where I built my first, actually I already built my first one, did some testing with it. It was like, I love it, let's make it bigger. So this video is me making it bigger and adding a second one. And then this one here, this CAS antenna revisited, was my work I did here in Mandeville to discuss some things that I learned about the CAS since I did my initial run of them, and put up my third one up here in the front yard, the 20 by 60 footer. I've learned some stuff even since then that I'll probably be going back and revisiting the CAS yet again for a third time, but these two videos will at least get you a good jump start on the process. So between Bruce's page, the BAMlog, and our YouTube channel here, just search for the CAS in our search over here. It pulls up these two, and that will get you what you need to get started. I'll tell you, it's actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. I had heard of CAS antennas for years, never thought I could do one, thought it was too complicated or whatever, but it's actually not. And I know with Wellbrook going out of business and kind of closing up shop, a lot of folks are talking about, well, what would we use now for a CAS amplifier? Now, I don't know that these are intended to be used for this, but I have heard some people talk about the fact that they use this experimenter's kit from W6LVP. So W6LVP loops. He has an experimenter's kit here that I know some folks are using for like their Superloop or some of the others. That seems to work. So you see you have the terminals here, the wired terminals on the side, and then you have your BNC connector on the bottom. This is what you would have outside, and this is your inside box that feeds it, power down the line. So I think it's 12 dB. So it's $275 for the experimenter's kit, but I mean, that would get you your transformer on one end. It may not be as good as a Wellbrook. I don't know the performance-wise if it's as good as a Wellbrook amplifier, which is specifically made for flags and CASs. I don't know if it is as good, but it probably gets you pretty close. I think there are some folks who are in this channel right now that are watching this stream in the chat. If you are, and you're one of those, talk about it, who are using this exact thing right here, this experimenter's kit, on their CAS and are getting great results with it. So try it out, see what you think. Maybe it might work. Let's do a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more DX. We're going to do our frequency of the week announcement for week 24. And then we'll be doing some more DX right after this on DX Central Live.
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central. DX Central Live is brought to you in part by...
Since 1933, the National Radio Club has been serving AMDXers while providing some of the most in-depth information in the hobby. From the annual NRC AM log, a must-have reference for domestic station information, to antenna design reference manuals, and of course, the DX News Member Bulletin, which is filled with station information updates, domestic and international loggings, and a whole lot more. Become a member today. For more information, log on to nationalradioclub.org. That's nationalradioclub.org. While the HF bands can be filled with entertaining and intriguing transmissions, how do you know when and where to look? Let Teague Publishing's Global Radio Guide lead the way. In addition to its exhaustive list of time and frequency for international broadcasters, radio hobby icon Gail Van Horn brings you equipment reviews, an SDR buyer's guide, feature articles, and more. Pick up your copy today. Visit teaguepublishing.com for more information. That's teaguepublishing.com. From the pages of its DX Monitor member bulletin, members of the International Radio Club of America share their domestic and international AMDX loggings. In its Mexican log, a wealth of information can be found of stations from south of the border. Technical guides, sunrise, sunset maps, and more make the IRCA a must-join for any AMDXer. For more information, log on to ircaonline.org. That's ircaonline.org.
Through crashes of static in quiet hours, we listen. In languages we can scarcely understand, and of places we have only visited in our dreams, we listen. Incessantly, we perfect our array of aerials, receivers, and resources. We refine our skills and our techniques so that we might listen. We are DX Central, and we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
Seventh inning, 1-0 in favor of Baltimore. The Birds with a run on 3 hits, no errors. The Dodgers, no runs, 3 hits, and no errors. For the Dodgers, Willie Davis, Lou Johnson, and Tommy Davis. Dave McNally comes to the plate. A drag bunt attempt is missed by Willie, and the count 0-1. This grounded to Johnny Powell and struck out and made the defensive play on Powell's bid for a home run in the 4th inning. Willie is 1 in the...
From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
All right, it's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana on a beautiful southern Friday night here. And we'll be getting our shout-outs compiled here in just a few moments. I'll go ahead and get the book cracked open, so hold on to those. After the top of the hour, we'll open up the floodgates in the chat while we listen to our new frequencies of the week, and see what might be there. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and gander that way. Any guesses? Anybody thinking they might know what we're going to be doing this week for frequencies? Think it might be kind of fun to see what you guys think we're going to do. We're winding down, that's for sure. We've got this week, we've got a little bit of a range, and then we've got one last range of frequencies. I'm going to split it up into 2. So we're going to have, after this week, next week, we'll have the first half, and then the last week that we'll have will be the last half. And then on May 5th, our last episode of the season, we'll announce the results from that week and all of the season as a whole, and solve the big mystery of who it was that this season logged more stations than anybody else over the course of the year. I wonder who that might be. Hola, Efe. You guys ready for this? I told you, we're going to keep going up as we get here to the end of the season. Next week, we're going to continue to rise up the band again one more time. Actually, 2 more times we're going to rise back up again. But yeah, 1250 to 1280. Now, we've already done 1270 once before. But I thought, you know what? Why not? I'm not going to just say 1250, 1260, and 1280. Let's just do the full range. 1250 to 1280. And that does include all the 9 kilohertz splits that are in between. I've got a local on 1280. I've got a semi-local on 1260. So this is going to be a fun week for us to see what might be here. I was looking at my my logs, and until I was doing my research this week and found a couple of new stations in there, 1250 and 1260 both had only, I think, 3 or 4 on those 2 frequencies. I was able to squeeze a couple more out last night just in my first pass. So looking forward to seeing if I can flush those out. And, of course, 1280, I think I got 3 there because of our local that we have. To be ODT. And so I'm hoping to be able to get the phaser out and do some tweaking of the knobs to get rid of them this week and see what might be lurking underneath. So without further ado, let's go take a quick gander. We'll do our usual thing here after the top of the hour. After we do a little bit of DX, we'll look at the nighttime patterns for these frequencies. I expect a lot of clutter because these are regional frequencies, but we'll take a look at the nighttime patterns and see if there's any stations that really stand out that should be widely heard. We'll take a look at the Latin American implications here for these frequencies, and we'll look at those in-betweens on the 9Ks for our international friends. I know we got Ray here from England, so we'll look for Ray and others who might be looking internationally to see what is there on those 9 kilohertz frequencies. So let's go ahead and start our top of the hour alert a little wee bit early tonight for this hour. This hour of Live DX brought to you, by the way, from International Radio Club, ircaonline.org. Top of the hour time frame, and so we're going to go over here. I'm already sitting on 1250. Look at that. And you probably saw me on my my RSP DX earlier sitting on 1270. So see, I was doing a little research last night, doing some preparation, trying to get ready to say what might be there. I didn't get to do a whole lot, but a little bit. So let's go ahead and see. We got the Perseus up and running here and recording, so we'll come back to that. We've got the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery with the Northeast CAS sitting there on 1250. And over here, let's go put this one on 1260. We've got the RSP DX with a twin W6 LVP loop. So we've got 3 different SDRs, 3 different antennas. We got the whole shebang covered here. And we'll be coming back here on the Perseus at the top of the hour. But for now, let's go to the Perseus, the AirSpy rather, and see what we've got sitting on 1250. We've got a strong carrier here that's sitting. And Stephanie says she's on 750 looking for Alaska. And either has Alaska or Georgia from the sunny Southern California. Either one of those would be awesome, right? I hope it's either one of those for you. But if you get Alaska, we're going to have a conversation. Yeah, right? I know which one I would take, but I have Georgia in the logbook. All right, let's go ahead and get those Let's go ahead and get those shout-outs. I did see 2 already in the chat a few moments ago that you guys were sending over early. Sean, I saw your 2 Montana's DX test, which we'll talk about that. We haven't even mentioned the DX test yet. We'll talk about the DX test here in a little bit. Saw where you got that for state number 35. Kudos, my friend. Carl, I saw you got the 7 new ones in there as well, so got you in. So shout-outs, send them on over. New logs, new states, new countries, new Canadian provinces, new Mexican states. If you heard new stuff this week, we want to know about it. We'll get you a shout out here after the top of the hour. Send them over to the chat now. Was that the RSPDX or the Duo, Mike? I can't remember. All right, I got Sean, I got Carl, I got Bill, I got Mike, I got David, I've got Haley, I've got Troy, and I've got other David. So I got David Shortwave Room, and I got David Main. I'm going to make sure I notate that here. Or David's Radio Room. If I didn't call your name, you got a shout out. New logs, new state, new country, new province, new Mexican state, sorry. Get those over to me in the chat now. And we had an ID there at the top of the hour from WLCK up in Scottsville, Kentucky. 860 watt daytime. What are they nighttime? 76 watts it says. Southern Gospel Radio. So we did get an ID out of them here at the top of the hour. So that'll be our first log for this week's challenge. Let's swap it over now to the RSPDX. Mike's new rig. He's got one of these now in his shack. So Mike's now living the RSP life. We're going to use the SDR Uno software as we wait for SDR Connect. Oh, no, all of us are on bated breath. Let's see what's on 1260 on the twin loops. I'm going to assume that's Baton Rouge. Yeah, KBRH here in Baton Rouge, here on 1260. Fantastic station, run by students. I actually reached out to their faculty advisor here a while back. But two things: one, to talk about DX with their students. Just haven't had a chance to make that happen here. And two was trying to set up a DX test, which I don't think they're going to be able to do. But if you ever have a chance to listen to them online, KBRH 1260, really, really good radio station. Yeah, thank you, Bill. The new blog post is up on the website, dxcentralonline.com. Make sure you go check it out if you have not yet done so. And he did put the link up for the new Google form in the chat as well. So if you're wanting to log those new catches for this week, make sure that you check our website out, get that, or click on that link there from Bill. But if you need it later on, our website is up that has that. And you'll find everything you need to get you going. Back to it.
To be some bad cats out there in the west, but when they dug me and my gangsta ways, they hung up their guns and made it to the grave. 'Cause I'm a gangsta of love.
Barry, wasn't Alberta a new one for you this week, a new Canadian province? I think it was, wasn't it, when you got Funny 1060? That seems to remember that rather. So far, I've got in the notes here for shout outs. I've got Sean, I've got Carl DeWitt, I've got Bill, I've got Mike Jeziorski, I've got Maine David, I've got Haley, I've got Troy, I've got Radio Room David, I've got Stephanie, and I've got Mesa Mike. If I didn't call your name and you got a shout out, send them on down. I got you in there, Barry. Was there anything else besides Alberta? Another good one for you to check for Alberta is 960 CFAC. I heard them here not long after I moved here, and I've heard them a couple times since, actually, on 960 with sports. It's their version of ESPN. That's another one you definitely should try. And 1140 CHRB also gets out well. I've heard them here as well. So if you want to add a couple more Alberta stations to your logbook, now that you've got them, now you can color in the province with the map. Those are some other ways you might be able to. I don't know why. I don't know why this microphone continues to die. And I know that was a poem there. What I was saying was the RTL SDR dongles work well with SDR Sharp, as you see on screen here. They also work with SDR Console. Both are free SDR programs, so they both work very, very well if you're wanting to use an RTL SDR dongle. My disclaimer usually contains for those that they are not the best if you're doing AM/DX specifically in a crowded RF environment or one where you have a lot of high-powered AM stations, because they tend to get overloaded, or FM stations. They tend to get overloaded a little bit in those kinds of environments, and they're not as sensitive for AM/DX and whatnot. But if you're using them for FMDX or like, VHF, UHF for ham bands, or even some HF stuff, you should be okay. But yeah, SDR Sharp and SDR Console are your two best bets for RTL SDR dongles as far as the software. SDR Uno does not work with them. That is specific to the SDR Play Suite. Let's do a quick break and hope that our microphone lasts. And when we come back, we're going to do shout outs and a whole lot more. So don't go anywhere. We'll have more live DX heading your way right after this on DX Central Live.
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
DX Central Live is brought to you in part by...
From the pages of its DX Monitor member bulletin, members of the International Radio Club of America share their domestic and international AM/DX loggings. In its Mexican log, a wealth of information can be found of stations from south of the border. Technical guides, sunrise, sunset maps, and more make the IRCA a must-join for any AM/DXer. For more information, log on to ircaonline.org. That's ircaonline.org. While the HF bands can be filled with entertaining and intriguing transmissions, how do you know when and where to look? Let Teague Publishing's Global Radio Guide lead the way. In addition to its exhaustive list of time and frequency for international broadcasters, radio hobby icon Gail Van Horn brings you equipment reviews, an SDR buyer's guide, feature articles, and more. Pick up your copy today. Visit teaguepublishing.com for more information. That's teaguepublishing.com. Since 1933, the National Radio Club has been serving AM/DXers while providing some of the most in-depth information in the hobby. From the annual NRC AM log, a must-have reference for domestic station information, to antenna design reference manuals, and of course, the DX News member bulletin, which is filled with station information updates, domestic and international loggings, and a whole lot more. Become a member today. For more information, log on to nationalradioclub.org. That's nationalradioclub.org.
Through crashes of static in quiet hours, we listen. In languages we can scarcely understand, and of places we have only visited in our dreams, we listen. Incessantly, we perfect our array of aerials, receivers, and resources. We refine our skills and our techniques so that we might listen. We are DX Central, and we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
And that's how I logged Vanuatu for the first time. I'm kidding, guys. I was doing that on purpose. It's DX Central Live, and we are in currently a status where we have the microphone on, so let's hope that stays. We're doing live DX, we're doing shout-outs, we're doing the medium wave frequency challenge, we're doing all kinds of stuff. So hopefully you're having fun on this Friday night. We'll make it a party. If we can't be super professional with a well-oiled machine. We're just going to have fun. How about that? So, some shout-outs this week. Nice little grouping here. So if I don't call your name, have no fear. We can get back to you later on in the show. But I did want to do one quick shout-out before we get into the log shout-outs. Because it's not really a log shout-out. I don't have a thing for this on screen to show. But I do want to do a shout-out. Mike in Mexico. Mike Jeziorski. You guys know Mike. Got a new SDR. Got himself an RSPDX this week. Ah, yeah! It's a new gear week. Yay! Let me know what you think, man. It's actually a pretty decent SDR. Pretty decent on the AM side. All right. Into the log shoutouts we go. It's going to be fast and furious, so hold on tight. Bart, I got you in here with 5 new ones this week. 5 new logs for Bart. Congratulations. Let's see. We've got Mesa Mike. Mesa Mike this week realized that he had not logged anything on 1460, so spun the dial or moved the mouse in that direction and got 2 new ones right away. So 2 new ones for Mike. Yeah. Stephanie, let me just make a little. I'm making sure I check mark the ones that I've talked about. So Bart, got you in there. I got Mike. I got Stephanie with KRCN Colorado. New log for Stephanie. Very nicely done, Stephanie. David's Radio Room. David got 2 new ones this week. Good job, David. Come back. Haley got a new one. WQMV. They were apparently naughty this week on when they shouldn't have been, or power up when they shouldn't have been. Haley got to be QMV in Tennessee for a new one. Good job, Haley! Bill, our resident moderator in the chat, purveyor of links, and a hell of a good DXer with a MLA 30 up there in Michigan. Added 5 new ones this week. Good job, Bill. Carl got 7 new ones. So let's start there. 7 new ones for Carl. And managed to snag Montana during the KSE NDX test. New state, yay! Good job, Carl. You know, it's weird. You mentioned not having the bots stop by. Since I moved to Restream, and Restream is basically the service that I use to take my live stream and perpetuate it out onto YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter all at once. So we have 4 platforms. Since I did that, bots went away. Magical. Magic. Speaking of a new state, we're not done. Sean got both a Montana DX test add a new state for number 35 for Sean. Good job, Sean! Woohoo! Yeah. Lloyd likes it. Lloyd likes firing off the fireworks. I'm a bit of a pyro in that regard. I always like fireworks. We got 2 left. Rick, I'm sorry. I had every intention of cooking up a little special gumbo here for David. And David, I promise you, next week I'll start the show off with a gumbo for you for this one, because this actually is very, very cool. And anytime I see you guys out there logging a station in Louisiana or New Orleans, it always gives me a little feels right here in the old Chestular area, because I'm like, hey, that's my place. That's my home. But this one was actually really, really cool because it's actually the converse. I've been trying to hear Maine on 870 for years. Never did it. But now we've got David up in Maine, got himself a new state, got Louisiana, 870, WWL, into David up in Maine. My friend, this fireworks for you. I'll cook you up some gumbo next week for the start of the show, in a virtual sense. I'm not a gumbo chef, so I can't cook you the real stuff. And that leaves us to one left for this round of shout-outs. Did you like that, Justin? Chestular? I am known to make up words from time to time. And probably the one that I think most of you are excited about seeing. Barry, our top dog, week in, week out on the Medium Wave Frequency Challenge. Added a new Canadian province this week. Alberta. Funny 1060. CKMX. Very, very cool, my friend. Anytime you add a new Canadian province, it deserves an extra special shout out. Yeah! So that's our first round of shout-outs, my friend. If we missed you, don't worry. Get those over in the chat. Let me know if you have a new station that you log this week. New state, new country, new Canadian province, new Mexican state. I haven't had a chance to launch the Fiesta yet. My finger's itching to launch the Fiesta, so if you got a new Mexican state, gotta send it. Get those over to me in the chat, and we'll get you a shout-out here a bit later on in the program as we make our way into this hour and the next. And we'll do our shout-outs for our logs from this week in the next hour as we get ready to ramp that hour down. All right. So, microphone's still working? Good. See the meter moving? Hopefully you guys are hearing me. We're on 1250, 1260, 1270, and 1280 this week for our medium wave frequency challenge for our 10 kilohertz frequencies and the 9 kilohertz frequencies in between those as well. And as we like to do this time each week, we're going to take a look at the nighttime patterns for our stations on each frequency and see what we can expect to see. Now, again, these are regionals, so I expect a whole lot of overlap and a whole lot of clusters of patterns here for the nighttime, especially on the East Coast, but there may be some ones that stand out a bit. Oh, already see one that stands out a bit here on 12. Is this 1250? Yeah, 1250. And I actually have a story about that one. So let's take a look at the nighttime patterns. This is from NF8M.com, and NF8M has a section on there for day and nighttime antenna patterns. My usual disclaimer here is these are mostly accurate, though I have been known to see some ones on here of stations that are no longer on the air, and the vice versa, stations that are on the air that aren't here. But these are a good starting point, at least give you an idea. Now, obviously here on the East Coast, wow, you guys have a nice big jumble. So it's going to be interesting to sort through all this and see what you're going to be able to hear on 1250. I'll do one little call out here of my old stomping grounds, WTMA here in Charleston, South Carolina. 5 kilowatt daytime, nighttime, and they do have a decent pattern up and down the coast. A nice little bloop here on the backside. Haven't heard him here yet. Even this nice little bloop here towards my way, I have not yet heard Charleston, WTMA, from Mandeville. We may have to try to fix that this week. So that'd be a fun one if you guys can hear that. I would get a little feels in the Chestular area on that one too. This is the one I have a story about. So you guys remember me talking last week about the W6 LVP loop and using it indoors in my hotel rooms on my travels and things like that with my AirSpy HF Plus Discovery. Down in Lake Forest, California, down here in Orange County, just south of Los Angeles, I actually was very, very surprised to see this station, KWSU 1250, make its way down here into Orange County. Now I kind of see why. The antenna pattern that's there makes a whole lot more sense to me now. But on my AirSpy HF Plus Discovery on a W6 LVP loop sitting inside of a hotel room on top of the air conditioning unit or the windowsill right there next to the glass, KWSU was heard. So folks out west, this is one that you might have a pretty good shot at. Other than that, there's some ones here in the Midwest. It looks like we have some nice little coverage area coming in from. So overall, I'd say a pretty interesting week. Just like I expect, a lot of crossover. We do have a Puerto Rican down here kicking up some dust off the coast, but probably not a whole lot of folks are going to hear that. So yeah, some stuff here along the West Coast. Some stuff here into Canada. Look at this one up here in Manitoba. Boy, that's one of those. I still have not logged Manitoba yet. I want to fire that moose off at some point in here and get the guys from Letterkenny on screen for logging Manitoba at some point, but that's not yet occurred. British Columbia and Manitoba, those are the two west of Ontario that I have not yet logged. I've gotten Alberta, I've gotten Saskatchewan, but Manitoba and British Columbia have yet managed to evade me. So yeah, it looks like a pretty good cluster here on the East Coast for a lot of you guys. And so that's, you can see why. Now, obviously, I'm not saying this is the only reason, because Barry is a very skilled DXer, has a very great setup with that Perseus and the CAS antenna, and they work wonders. But you can see why. I've over here, Barry, for those of you who don't know, is just west of Knoxville in Crossville, Tennessee, which is not too far from where I used to live in Brasstown. And I can vouch, from that area, in the little corner right there, you've got access to a ton of stations in the eastern half of the United States. So you can kind of see why here on the map. See all those overlaps. So Barry and Jeff and some of you guys that are kind of in the midst of all this are going to have another fun week. Let's look at 1260. A little bit more spread out on the northern half. Look at all this down to the south, though. Look at this ridge of stations here in the southern, right along the Appalachians down into the southern United States down here. Of course, we have KBRH, which has a small coverage area here at nighttime. But the East Coast folks, you guys have quite a bit here on 1260. We have some Canadian stuff. We have some stuff right here on the border that's blasting up. Look at that coverage well into it. We do have a just north of Calgary in Edmonton, an Alberta station with a pretty decent size coverage area. I would be very interested to see if anyone is able to pull a CFRN in this week on 1260. We've got some, looks like San Francisco has a nice big one here. KSUR has got a nice big one in here. Here's a fun one. I had to make sure I can read the call sign there. KBSZ in Phoenix. Nope, that's not them. Albuquerque. That's, or where is that? No plot. Replot. We got this one here, KTRC in Santa Fe. That's the city it's in. Santa Fe, New Mexico. Sitting there with a pretty nice coverage area. Nice big omnidirectional signal. So that's one I'm going to try to target since I have my CAS pointed west this week. So that would be fun to be able to pull another New Mexican station in. I've only got a couple of those. Of course, the usual assortment here of Texas, and then again up here into the eastern half of the United States. So Missouri, KSGF, I know they have a... Look at this. This is a signal that gets out pretty well. Look at that big sucker. Literally, it looks like a binky, right? Looks like a binky. That antenna pattern. Yeah, so that's going to be widely heard, I would assume. KPOW here in Wyoming. That's an interesting... Is that an X or an H shape, would you call that? X or an H shape antenna pattern here for them. That's interesting. Let me plot this one and look at that one by itself. Redraw. Look at that. Butterfly. There we go. It's a butterfly. that butterfly antenna pattern. And they do send some of that down my way, so it's possible that I could hear KPOW. Kind of doubt it. Let's look now at 1270. Well, look at these. As usual, East Coast, you guys are just falling all over top of each other over here on the East Coast. A lot of spread over there. And then you get out here, look at, you got KTFI here in Idaho. Twin Falls. That's a nice coverage area. You got some stuff here. Let me look up. I like to look up into Canada. Nothing up there. What's this one right here? KEPS. Eagle Pass. That's a decent sized. Badoop. KEPS. And I'm keeping an eye on the meter just to make sure I'm still giving you audio. Then, okay, if it wasn't KEPS, who was it? Okay. It's K. It wasn't KEPS. It's Dallas. Benbrook, Texas. KFLC. If I remember right, that's what, 1270? Let me look at that frequency. They are... I've got them here. Fort Worth. Ah, yes. TUDN Deportes, so Spanish sports. Nice big coverage area there. Looks like a squished apple. Yeah, some people sit there and play the game like, what does a cloud look like? You know, interpreting clouds. We do that with antenna patterns. Guess that's who we are as DXers. Another one in Wyoming. Look at that. Another in Wyoming with a decent amount of coverage area there into the upper Midwest. Down in Colorado. So, yeah, I think for the most part, a lot of overlap as usual here on the East Coast, but a little more spread out with that nice big one there from Idaho. I'll be very interested to see just how many folks can hear that one. And then we get to 1280. I do have a local here in the New Orleans area, which if I no-plot that one, you'll see what I'm living with here. Plot. This is the Black Information Network, BIN New Orleans, 1280 WODT, and look at that sucker. That's a pretty big coverage area. Out west, down here into Florida, pretty much the entire southeast, you should have a shot here at New Orleans this week. And so I tell you what, in honor of David up in Maine, I'm going to cook up that gumbo for you. If anybody logs this station this week for a new log, if it's a relog, cool, awesome. But if you get New Orleans, this station for the very first time this week, we'll play a special little shout out for you next week. So make sure if you log this one for the first time as a new log, that next week in the shout outs that you let me know. And we'll fire off the special Louisiana flavored gumbo shout out next week for those who log that for the first time. And we'll do our one for David as well. So we'll keep that going too. We'll put that in the rotation. So if you heard a Louisiana station for the first time, we'll get you that gumbo. All plots again. Look at this big one over here. Who that is? Looks like an octopus. Right? KBNO, Denver. I'm always looking for more Colorado stations. That could be a fun one. Again, we have nice big omnidirectional antenna patterns up here in the Pacific Northwest. Is that is that KJT? KIT? Yakima? Obviously, I'm not a big Pacific Northwest expert. What stations are up there? We've got well, that ODT is going to be widely heard. We've got looks like down here, where is that one again? I think that's, isn't that Orange County? Long Beach, yeah. 1280. KFRN, I remember that call sign from when I was there in Lake Forest. So yeah, we've got a little bit less dense on 1280 than maybe some of the other frequencies. I don't know, maybe some of these East Coasters actually are pretty dense. Look at all that. We have a nice signal area here from Puerto Rico on 1280. Look at that. Gets all the way into Cuba. So hey, Florida, East Coast. If you're on the eastern half of the United States, you're up here on the coastline, Dennis. I'm looking at you here. David, up in Maine, I'm looking at you here. You might have some interference some of these other stations in here, but if you can null those down and start looking down to the south, you got a shot at Puerto Rico. Could be possible. Now let's do our usual look here. Now we've looked at the nighttime patterns. Let's just take a gander. We'll start with 1280. Anything in South America besides this nice big 5 kilowatt out of Puerto Rico that we just looked at? What else do we have? Latin America. We have a couple of stations out of Mexico. Monterrey, 10 kilowatt. I've heard them. Those are the main ones, I think. So they have the Monterrey XEAW on 1280. That's a possibility, and they're dominant here when I can null out my local. Which is why I've only heard 3 stations on this frequency so far. I've heard Mexico, New Orleans, and who was the third one? I can't remember who it was. Maybe it's just those 2, actually. We have a couple smaller stations here on Cuba. I don't even have a power rating for those. Interesting. What do we have here in Central America? Doesn't look like anything too serious. 1K, 1K, 2.5K. Yeah. 5K Aviva Dos in Bogota. That could be a possibility for some folks. There's a Caracol in Pasto, Colombia. 5 kilowatt. That could be a possibility for some folks. 10 kilowatt Radio Trujillo. Yeah, there we go. 10 kilowatt there out of Venezuela. And Zaraza, 10 kilowatt out of Venezuela. That's about most of what I'm seeing here in South America. 1280. Let's look at 1270 now. Smaller. There's a 5 kilowatt Quirandana. That's a kilowatt. 3.5 kilowatt. 2 to 4. We do have one station out of this would be a new state for me, I think, a New Mexican state, if I can hear XEGL, but it's only a kilowatt, so that'd be tough. 500 watts out of Tijuana, so probably not a lot of Mexico logs on that frequency this week. So yeah, not a whole lot here on 1270. Nothing out of Cuba. I mean, nothing really strong here. Let's look at 1260. A bit more here out of Mexico. Looks like smaller stations, a kilowatt. There's a 5K on the border there, La Primera XCOG out of, I'm not even going to try that one. Not even going to try that at all. 1 kilowatt, XCL, 35 kilowatt. That's one I haven't logged yet. That's going to be on my list, my target list for this week. 1260 out of Mexico. We're going to throw that Southwest Cas right at him and try for him. Here we go. Only kilowatt. Caracol Radio out of San Andres y Providencia, which counts as its own country. I know it's a Colombian island, but it counts as its own country. There's another one of these on 910. It's RCN Radio, RCN, which actually I think it has 20-odd kilowatts or something like that. Gets out fairly well. So if you want to add a new country fairly easily, Barry. Some of you other folks in the southern United States, 910, San Andres y Providencia would be a good one for you. I doubt this 1 kilowatt gets out very much, though, even though it is in the middle of the water, so maybe it does. There is a Progresso outlet here, 2.5 kilowatts. Brings up an interesting topic. Listen for the Progresso song. Oops. Let me find it again here. So this is something that I did when I was in Charleston. I actually heard this on 1230. On a graveyard frequency, I heard this song. Weak, but they were there. So listen for this week on 1260. If you hear it, then you know you have heard Cuba's Radio Progresso. This is one of the outlets I'm missing. They don't. Oh, and then the bell. They don't do it at the top of every single hour, but they do it quite a few of them. Start looking about 2 or 3 minutes before to 2 or 3 minutes after the top of the hour. That could be an option for some of you to be able to get another progressive outlet. It is on the southeastern end of the island, 2.5 kilowatts. So I don't assume it's going to get out super well if it's even still on the air. But listen for it. If you hear that little distinctive song, which you'd be surprised how well it gets out, then you know you got them. We do have an area saying a 5K out of Columbia. That'd be decent. Oh, by the way, Rick, yeah, Baton Rouge. Any station that you log out of the state of Louisiana that's brand new to you, we'll get the special gumbo shout out. Well, that's what I'm gonna call it. I don't know if it'll have gumbo in it, but it'll be the special gumbo shout out. BBN out of Venezuela, 10 kilowatt. That's a possibility. Got a couple more 5Ks out of Colombia, Authentica and Uvias. I'm assuming that's what that would be pronounced. Nothing out of Peru, Rager. Let's look at 1250. We'll start with South America here. Not a whole lot there. There's a 10K in Colombia, Capital Radio. That could be a possibility. 10K XEDK Guadalajara. Some of you might be able to pull that one in. Haiti, not much out that. So not a whole lot there. So I think that's most of what we see from Latin America. So a couple of options in there on some of those frequencies. And let's slide on over to our 9 kilohertz spacing. And let's look here for anything significant. A couple of 25 kilowatt Hungarians over in Europe. Nothing in Africa. There is a 200 kilowatt station out of China. Here, kind of the middle of the country. So those of you shooting the pole might have a shot there. There's a 100 kilowatt out of Tajikistan, BBC World Service. 100K. That could be one that's heard. So yeah, if you're a U.S. person shooting the pole, or if you're in Asia or the Middle East, there's some options there for you. Oceania, there's a 5 kilowatter out of New Zealand down here. Raymo Radio. So Tim Trump and company, maybe that's an option. Maybe too weak, I don't know. But at least give it a shot. Now let's look at, that's 1251. Let's go to 1260. We already looked at 1260 US. There's a 500 kilowatter out of Saudi. 500K out of Saudi Arabia. That could be an option for some folks. There's another 400K out of Pakistan. What's the Iranians 10? What's the one in India? They usually have pretty big power, 20K. So Pakistan 400K, Saudi Arabia 500K. That could be an option for some of y'all. Let's go down to 1269, starting in Oceania. A couple 5Ks here in Australia, one on the west coast and one on the east. They don't have a lot of stations down there, do they? 600K out of China, right in the middle. China Radio International on 1269. 600 kilowatts. That should be doable for some. Kuwait has a 100K station over here as well. Classical Arab music. Would love to hear that one. That'd be nice. Nigeria with a 10K, probably not getting out too much. And a couple of Cope España stations here that are 10 and 5K. So I think I read somewhere that some of the folks were reporting that the transatlantic, transoceanic stuff is getting a little bit better. Some signs of life, so maybe some of you might have a shot at some of this. Nothing really in Europe or Africa. We got another 100K in China here on 1278. We've got a 200 in Iran, 200 kilowatts in Iran, 100 kilowatts in Oman. Ooh, that would be interesting. Adding Oman to the list. 5K in Australia here down on the southeastern coast, and that's probably about it. So not a ton on the 9K splits, but at least some stuff that might be there for our international friends. So as always, whether you are US based or not, you are welcome to participate in our DX challenge. You can DX on the US frequencies on the 10K splits. You can DX on the 9K frequencies. You can do both. Log what you can get, everything as much as you can get. And if you're in the US and you can hear stuff on those 9Ks, log those too. You have the ability to do that. So everything that you can hear, as much as you can hear, that's the point. So we invite everyone worldwide to join us here in this particular DX party. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more live DX, maybe some shout-outs if we got some more in there, and more fun right here on DX Central Live. Don't go anywhere.
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central. DX Central Live is brought to you in part by...
From the pages of its DX Monitor member bulletin, members of the International Radio Club of America share their domestic and international AM/DX loggings. In its Mexican log, a wealth of information can be found of stations from south of the border. Technical guides, sunrise, sunset maps, and more make the IRCA a must-join for any AM/DXer. For more information, log on to ircaonline.org. That's ircaonline.org. While the HF bands can be filled with entertaining and intriguing transmissions, how do you know when and where to look? Let Teague Publishing's Global Radio Guide lead the way. In addition to its exhaustive list of time and frequency for international broadcasters, radio hobby icon Gail Van Horn brings you equipment reviews, an SDR buyer's guide, feature articles, and more. Pick up your copy today. Visit teaguepublishing.com for more information. That's teaguepublishing.com. Since 1933, the National Radio Club has been serving AM/DXers while providing some of the most in-depth information in the hobby. From the annual NRC AM log, a must-have reference for domestic station information, to antenna design reference manuals, and of course, the DX News member bulletin, which is filled with station information updates, domestic and international loggings, and a whole lot more. Become a member today. For more information, log on to nationalradioclub.org. That's nationalradioclub.org.
Through crashes of static in quiet hours, we listen. In languages we can scarcely understand, and of places we have only visited in our dreams, we listen. Incessantly, we perfect our array of aerials, receivers, and resources. We refine our skills and our techniques so that we might listen. We are DX Central, and we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
And now KYW presents the Philadelphia Phillies pregame show, brought to you by Safeguard Mutual Insurance and by Woco Department Stores.
From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
There we go. Now we're back on DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana. My friends, thank you for joining us. We always have having you all here and being part of the fun. We're going to do another round of shout-outs here after the top of the hour. So if you have new logs, new states, new countries, get those in. Houston, Texas, Radio DX mentioned, just started logging AMDX. Everything's new for you. So, hey, that's cool too, man. If you have you can total it up. You can just say, I got 30 new ones this week. You can highlight specific ones. If you have new states, new countries, we want to know about those too, so we can do something special for those, as you saw. New Canadian province, want to know about those. We can do something special. But yeah, we like to pat each other on the back around here because that's what keeps us motivated, it's what keeps us going, keeps us energized, and keep spinning those dials and listening through crashes of static and quiet hours, as our guy says in the promo. All right, we're gonna do some more live DX here and get back to our range here. Again, we're 1250 to 1280. That's our new range for the week. Go to our website, dxcentralonline.com, and you can find the blog post. There's a website. The blog post has a link in there for the Google form, so you can submit your loggings. For those of you who might be new to what we do here with the Medium Wave Frequency Challenge, they don't have to be new to you. It's everything that you heard on those frequencies starting tonight through next Friday, on 1250 through 1280. Anything on those frequencies that you heard, new to you, relog, doesn't matter. Everything that's in that you've heard in this week counts as fair game for the challenge. Put those in there, including, don't forget your locals. I think a lot of people sometimes forget their local stations. Put those in there too. Everything that you can hear counts. If you hear a TIS station on 12 whatever this week, 1260 or something, that counts. Anything that's a station that you can log in there. If it's a pirate being heard, throw it in there. Speaking of TIS, by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that also on our website, dxcentralonline.com, you can actually find a little area here. Let me go to the web's browser screen again. If you log to our website, DX Central Online, there's that blog post, by the way. Bloop, bloop, right there, 1250 to 1280. You look for the little logo. Go up here to the top where you have the menu and hover over More, and then you'll see TIS Hard Challenge. We're going to continue this through the end of, well, what I consider the end of the season, through August 31st. We'll reset on September 1st and start this one back up again for the new season. But this one runs through the end of August. Okay, so if you hear a TIS or HAR station, doesn't matter what frequency it's on. TIS, Traveler's Information. HAR is Highway Advisory Radio. If you hear one of these stations, I give you an example what one sounds like here from my local one that I have. It's about a mile from the house. If you hear one of these stations somewhere, whether you're at home or out and about, oot and a boot, as our friends up to the north might maybe say. Is that a stereotype to say oot and a boot's a Canadian thing? I don't know. If you are out and about, though, this summer doing traveling or whatever, you can also, there is a category here for rover. So you can log it as home or rover. And you can do both. You can do home, you can do rover, doesn't matter. I just want you to log stuff. Have fun with it, right? So this TIS Hard Challenge will run through the end of the summer, through the end of August. So if you have TIS or hard stations that you hear, Traveler's Information, you can find a list of them here. This list right here, this link is for the free TIS HAR list from the IRCA. If you catch an air check of one, we'd love it if you email us, you upload it to YouTube and email us that link, and we'll add it to our playlist, whether it's our TIS or HAR or not. We'll still add it to our playlist. So you can just upload it to YouTube, the air check, send me that link, and I'll add it to our playlist. We'd love to have more on there besides just the ones that we hear, which I haven't heard a lot, but we're working on that. So yeah, make sure that if you hear any of those TIS HAR stations, that you get them into the challenge. Again, I got Justin in here for a shout out for after the top of the hour. If you have a new station that you log, new state, new country, new Canadian province, new Mexican state, get those into us in the chat, and I'll be sure to include you in the shout outs round 2 after the top of the hour. Let's go back into the live DXO. Let's go to 1270 and see what we find here on 1270.
will seek to fill with angry protesters demanding their legal rights to murder babies. It's time for revival. When schools are required to put their dogs in records that can't walk anyway backwards, it's time for revival.
Ham Radio for You says the RTL SDR is prone to overload. Yes, I agree. Wanted to know if the RSPDX would be similarly afflicted. You do have the ability to cut the RF gain back. I live in an area. I've got a 50 kilowatt station to my south. I've got a bunch of 5 and 10Ks in the area, a bunch of FM stations as well, super high powered ones. You can cut the RF back, but the RSPDX specifically on the medium wave bands has a high dynamic range HDR mode that is specifically built to ensure that that doesn't happen. You can back off the RF gain a little bit, enable that HDR mode in SDR Uno or in SDR Console. They actually have that same mode in there, and it'll actually help prevent that overload from happening and give you better results. And I'll actually show that to you here on my screen. So you'll see right here it says LIF on this. It says 1.536 megahertz LIF. So if I go over here and I click on medium wave, the MW button, and now I'm just going to type in 1.270. Oops, I missed some O's there. I can't do that. 1.270. That's what I was looking for. Now, it actually didn't do it. There, now I'm in it. 1.270. I forgot. I don't do the 1.2. You can tell I don't use SDR Uno a whole lot. Okay, there we go. 1270. Now we're in HDR mode. It says HDR right here. This little green light is lit on the MW. And now, this is what it sounds like with it. I need to pull it lower sideband here.
Either through miscarriage or perhaps through abortion.
I'll give you an example of what this sounds like. So here it is with it engaged.
Life-size statue. We have of the unborn, which is beautiful.
Here it is without high dynamic range. See how it sounds a bit more muffled? There's not a lot of separation in there.
That child is not forgotten. By God in this angel. Born into pray for healing. But beyond just that personal, private,
a little bit more separation in there on the 1260 now with the high dynamic range. So I use the RSPDX a lot. Another good one is the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery, by the way. Where's my button? There's my button. For the final time tonight, we are looking for top of the hour time frame, and we're sitting right now. Let's do 1260. And let's do the RSPDX. And right now, the twin loops are pointing at 45 degrees.
What I'd recommend, well, I certainly hope you are able to come back and listen to this because
you can hear BRH in there. Let's also look at 45 degrees over here on the on the CAS AirSpy combo. Confession, in the off season in the summertime when I sit here and do my DX and it gets to the top of the hour, I throw the lights red. I do. Because I miss you guys.
It's a very helpful thing to help you realize this is not some...
It's a short 4 months apart, but it feels like forever. So again, if you log KBRH 1260 for the first time this week, make sure you let me know next week in the shout-outs, and I'll get you that special Louisiana cooking version of the shout-out.
Loss and grief from the loss of unborn children. I would say for you and for all of those who are needing that healing touch from the Lord. My Father Matthew Spencer, 888-914-9149 is the number to call. 1 hour.
Yeah, Jacob, for that TIS, just info@dxcentralonline.com. Email that, upload that to YouTube, email me that link, and I'll put that on the playlist. Correct, Rick. New Orleans or Baton Rouge or any stations out of Louisiana. And we'll keep this rolling. I'm not going to stop this week. We'll keep this rolling from now on. If you log a new station out of the state of Louisiana that's new to you during one of our challenge, it doesn't even have to be the challenge. It could be on any frequency. It doesn't matter. If you log a new station in the state of Louisiana during the course of the week between our shows, let us know in the shout out. You'll get that at home cooking. There was an ID.
The U.S. Attorney General says the man accused of leaking classified Pentagon documents has been arrested. Sarah Garland said 21-year-old Jack Shapiro was a member of the intelligence wing of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. Keeping you connected with the church and the world 24 hours a day. This is listener-supported relevant radio. Reignite the Marian devotion at the 10th annual Walk to Mary. Join our sponsor, Walk to Mary, and spend your day with thousands of pilgrims from across the country on the 21-mile journey to the National Shrine of Our Lady of Good Health. Shorter options like the Walk with the Children are available. Bishop Brigham will celebrate Mass in the afternoon. Learn more and sign up at walktomary.com. That's walktomary.com.
If I had to guess, that relevant radio is probably WSDZ in Belleville, St. Louis, Missouri. Heard them here before. 5 kilowatt night, 20K day. They get out pretty well. So if I had to guess, that's who I would assume that probably is. Let's go back over to our Perseus rather now, and let's see what we caught. Again, this is looking out west. So it looks like I'll be doing some phasing on Baton Rouge this week. And I'm going to assume that Spanish station is probably XEL here in Guadalajara, which I actually have heard. Or not Guadalajara. It was Aquilpan, Los Reyes. I have heard them before, apparently. It's in my logbook, so there it is. Mexico City. Thank you, Mike. I heard somebody ID in there, a W station.
Sometime I'm gonna have to break down, go to Japan with his head in his hand, and so he can take it, have to puke on the table. I think that'll give you a taste of the blues. Oh, nigga, the whole Soviet Union.
Okay, let me down to 12:50. See what we caught here at the top of the hour. Ray wants to know about the Jaguar software. So it is, it's available for people who have Perseus. So it's tethered to the Perseus. So you have to have a Perseus for Jaguar to work. I'll pull up the website though here and put it up on screen. All right, so it's Jaguars, plural, jaguars.kapsi.fi. That's where you'll find it. The information about it. There's a couple other sites that they also have up as well, but that's where I found it originally. And you can download the light version. Actually, I think if you look up Jaguar Light SDR. So again, if you have a Perseus, this is, there you go. This is the one I was looking for. Jaguar Light. Jaguar-light.blogspot. Jaguar-light.blogspot.com/p/intro. This is where if you just look up Jaguar Light SDR, you'll find it here for the Blogspot site. You'll be able to download the light version. Try it out. It is limited. Not all the features are turned on. But then if you like it and you want to do it, they give you the instructions here about how to then get the full version. You have to pay, I think it's $50. Used to, at least it was $50 to get the full version unlocked from IPA, the rest of the development crew, and the address is down in the website. So yeah, if you have a Perseus and you want to play around with Jaguar software, that's how you would do so. Start with Jaguar Light. They want you to start there first and then kind of go from there. But it is, if you have a Perseus, I can't recommend it enough. So let's see who we had here at the top of the hour.
On 5:30 a.m. KJMJ in Alexandria, 43, and on the radio. You're listening to Radio Maria, your Christian voice.
Radio Maria, that's our friends KDEI, which is actually one of the ones I logged for the first time last night doing my research. KDEI here in Port Arthur, Texas. Radio Maria. 1 kilowatt nighttime, so might be able to get around them.
Streaming live on our website at radiomaria.us, on the Radio Maria USA mobile app, on your telephone at 1-631-35.
Humility is of key importance when it comes to
and let's look at 1270. Again, we've already done this frequency, so it should be pretty familiar for some of you. KFLC was one of the ones that we heard a lot. That one out of Fort Worth. Big signal. You can see it kind of clears out a lot down here. There was an ID in there from WIJD in Pritchard, Mobile, Alabama. Yep, the Spanish baseball station, that would be KFLC.
So worried about my finances and I feel bad because I should be worried, right? I realize that inflation is going to be eating up money. I've got to do something to get around this crazy stock market and Biden's spending spree. Gold has, since the beginning of time, been the resource that God's people have relied on. The silver is mine and the gold is mine, is what the prophet Haggai said during a time of great shaking. To protect...
So we had the ID from KFLC, after IJD and Mobile ID.
Then I recommend you diversify your 401k or IRA right out of paper assets and into physical gold. The best way to do that is with Gold IRA from the Birch Gold Group. I want you to text the word FAIT, F-A-I-T, to 9898.
And I will give you guys the ID of what it sounds like for New Orleans BIN.
The most immersive experience possible. Learn more about AdFellows at adfellows.com. That's adfellows.com.
1280 AM WODT, New Orleans, the Black Information Network.
BINNewsNewOrleans.com. On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at BIN News New Orleans. Tell your smart device to play New Orleans BIN 1280 on iHeartRadio. I'm hearing the...
So that's what you're listening for WODT. If you are so inclined, and you're looking for that home cooking gumbo shout out next week, that's one of your options. Obviously, like I said, it doesn't even have to be a challenge frequency. Any new to you Louisiana station gets the gumbo home cooking shout out next week. All right, speaking of shout outs, I know we have one more in here for Justin, and so if I didn't get to you this week, you can bring your shout outs to next week. We'll get you in there. Justin had one new one this week, WCUB Wisconsin on 980, so only the one, but hey, that's one more than you had, so my friend, that still qualifies you for the chainsaw. Mike, yeah, I'll here. Let me replay. I'm not going to bring it up on screen. I'll just replay the audio.
BIN News. Learn more about AdFellows at adfellows.com. That's adfellows.com.
1280 AM WODT, New Orleans, the Black Information Network.
BINNewsNewOrleans.com. On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at BIN News New Orleans. Tell your smart device to play New Orleans BIN 1280 on iHeartRadio.
Does that help? Get what you need? Take care, Carl. I don't know why I'm waving at the chat screen. I should be waving at the camera. Bye, Carl. But I'm waving at the chat screen instead. It's been a long day. All right, so we had a couple of new ones here this week ourselves, so we can get in some of the fun. So if I go over here and I filter down... what was that? 7 new ones this week here at the North Shore Studios. Starting with WKMQ out of Tupelo, Mississippi on 1060. That was nice to see them in there. Relog on 1060 Radio 26. Last heard in Charleston, but new to me here in Mandeville out of Jovellanos, Cuba. Radio Guama 1070, also Cuba. Funny 1060 CKMX made their way down here for a few brief moments. Heard the audience laughter, heard the stand-up comedy, heard a very weak ID under XECPAE. which them and XERDO out of Mexico were just obliterating 1060 all week. WFRF out of Tallahassee on 1070 was a nice addition. Nice surprise to get them in here. Did not expect to see them actually make it this week. KDEI, just saw them here. We were on 1250 out of Port Arthur with Radio Maria, and then 1260 KTAE out of Elgin, Texas. 2 new Texas stations, and that total puts us up now. Let me come back up to, I think it's 696. Is our new number now? Yep, 696. So 4 away from 700, which was my goal for the DX season. I wanted to hit 700 this season. We only need 4 more, and we'll be there. So very, very exciting. And I'm very excited because previously the month of April had only netted me here in Mandeville 5 stations. I didn't do a whole lot of DX last year in April for some reason. I don't know why. But I already have 10 new ones this month for this DX season. So that April total, it looks a lot better now. That's going to do it for tonight's edition of DX Central Live. Oh, I might as well go ahead and give myself the logbook, right? Oh, let me go back here, Mike. See, you said there might be an ID right after the BIN. Let's play it.
And Instagram at BIN News New Orleans. Tell your smart device to play New Orleans BIN 1280 on iHeartRadio. I'm Terry McCree.
I didn't hear. Let me lower sideband it real quick.
New Orleans. Tell your smart device to play New Orleans BIN 1280 on iHeartRadio.
Would that be XEAW, maybe? That would be Le Grand. That'd be a relog. I did hear it sound like some Spanish in there. But 7 new ones this week. That's going to do it for this edition of DX Central Live. We got 3 episodes left after tonight, my friends. This season ending May 5th, and then we'll be back for season 4 in the fall. And so get your shout outs in now. Get your logs in now. We've got this week 1250 to 1280. And then the next 2 weeks, we're going to be up a little bit further up the band. I'm not going to tell you just yet what that range is going to be, but a little bit further up the band than where we are right now. Thank you to our sponsors, the National Radio Club, International Radio Club of America, and Teak Publishing for your support in bringing you this week's edition of DX Central Live. We'll see you again at 6:45 Central, 23:45 UTC, right here in these same platforms. Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, or on our website, dxcentrallive.com. As always, also go to our main website, dxcentralonline.com, for more information about DXing. If you're newer to DX or you just want to get some tips and tricks on propagation and gear and how and when and why and where to DX and things like that for both AM and FM, dxcentralonline.com is your one-stop shop. Take care, my friends. Best of DX to you. We'll see you this time next week, 73.
This